Hi everyone, hope doing very well. I'm going to talk about 10 to 15 minutes or so about just what happened today when the United States once again broke the ceasefire and attacked Iran. But before I do, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you so much for all those who have subscribed and given me your opinion. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All the comments I respect and I appreciate. Unfortunately, I cannot respond to all. So please don't take it the wrong way. And for those who are here for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And please do subscribe. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, United States broke its agreement, broke the ceasefire by going through the Strait of Hormuz, trying to, get through the water, which was against Iranian law. The Iranian responded back, and then the United States attacked Iran again. So this was, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make something very clear. This was not unexpected. Most of us knew that the United States would not agree, would not abide by its agreement, would not respect. And why? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, Israel. And what do I mean by that? Is that this war, ladies and gentlemen, would not be resolved until the situation with Israel is resolved. In other words, it is Israel that will define as what is Americans' foreign policy, unfortunately. You may disagree with that, and I respect that, but I think that is the general view. United States went to this war for Israel. The only ones who are supporting this war are Israelis or pro-Israeli lobby or the Zionists. So United States will not sit down to a ceasefire, will not respect that until in this case, Mr. Netanyahu had said so. So we all knew that. Second thing, ladies and gentlemen, we all knew, well, not all, most of us, I certainly said it would be happening, was the fact that for the past 10 days or so, United States has been sending planes of loads, dozens of planes to all of these bases, every single one with missiles, anti-missiles, and supplies, and leaving with personnel that are non-necessary, for the lack of a better term. The third thing was that, ladies and gentlemen, about 2 days ago, the United States sent a mandatory evacuation for non emergency personnel. That was the clue. That was the nail on the coffin. The United States is not going to respect a peaceful agreement if it's sending supplies to these bases and it's pulling its emergency people out, because it figures when the Iranians hit the bases, and the Iranians will hit the bases, depends on which base, of course, they don't want Americans get killed. So they could say, well, they hit the bases, Americans didn't get killed, right? So we knew it was coming. So for me, the cat and mouse that the president is playing is not important. This war, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, will have to go to the end, because that was the strategy of Iran and its allies, in this case, China and Russia, which make up the CIR, the Chinese Iranian Russian alliance. For those who have been following me for some time, who read my articles, who have watched my videos, know that the CIR alliance has been preparing for this for a number of years. They just didn't wake up one morning and say, okay, we're going to go. They have been preparing for this. That is why when we took out the Iranian leadership, they just came back and they still kicked our ass militarily. And so for the Iranians, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately for the United States, this war will not end until United States thinks it's simply too expensive to stay. And by the way, I mean financially, because the aim of Iran has always been a war of attrition, not just military, just to hit, but to make it so expensive for the United States that would either leave but survive economically or stay and go bankrupt. And at the moment, it would seem to be the latter, but let's see. So for me, the breaking of this agreement by the US, it wasn't unexpected. What is important for me, ladies and gentlemen, and for many of us who study the region, certainly from the non Eurocentric, non Western perspective, is the response. Who is Iran going to hit? Is it Saudi Arabia? Is it Jordan? or is it UAE, right? Remember what UAE has done. MBZ of Abu Dhabi has basically shouted out there that they're anti-Iranian and they're pro-Israel, and they're going to make sure that Iran loses. Fine. But there's a saying in politics which is old: don't write a check your ass can't cash, right? And so I think in this case, when the Iranians hit, we don't know how bad they're hitting UAE, but when they hit, they are going to hit hard. And for me, also, it's important where they are going to hit. Is it Abu Dhabi? Is it Dubai again? Or is it Sharjah? I'm not sure they're going to hit Sharjah because Sharjah is conservative and they're the ones who are telling MBZ of Abu Dhabi, stop, and he's not listening. So it's either Dubai or Abu Dhabi, which, by the way, in many ways, it just means the end of Dubai because on UAE, the UAE you knew 2 months ago is gone. It's never going to come back. It's not going to be the party scene. It's never going to be the Singapore of Middle East. It's gone, no matter what MBZ tries to do. And so for me, that's important. But I'm also watching two other countries, Saudi Arabia and Jordan. And why am I watching these two? Because have you been reading my article? If you have been watching my videos, I have said both MBS of Saudi Arabia and both King Abdullah of Jordan have been facing tremendous amount of backlash, but this time from the tribes, right? The very tribes that maintain them in power. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we have always said these are man-made countries that the British went chop, 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 chop. But these are ancient tribes who have a contract that goes back a couple of thousand years in which the leader would listen to its population, would protect them economically and militarily, but he would have absolute support. With both King Abdullah and with both MBS of Saudi Arabia, those covenants were broken. And so, in both cases at the same time, both leaders attempted to diminish the power of the tribes by westernizing the entities that would give tribe their economic power. By that I mean was like in the case of King Abdullah, as he was trying to, and he did actually, where the water system, the garbage system, their utilities were being directed or given lease to French companies, to European companies. The intention was, look, we're modern day, we're going to modernize it. The times of the tribes are over. I still respect that. But the tribes did not go for that. They realized what he was trying to do. So in this case, between the war, between being attacked, between King Abdullah, and in many ways MBS of Saudi Arabia, seeing their powers try to be destroyed, the tribes got together and basically told King Abdullah, no. Particularly, ladies and gentlemen, the four big ones. You're talking about the Hawitat. You're talking about the Bani Hassan, which is the 1 million tribe. You're talking about the Bani Sakr. You're talking about the Bani Ahmad, who's, by the way, the daughter is married to King Abdullah's half brother, the former crown prince, right? You're talking about all these tribes pretty much telling King Abdullah, our homes, our land is not to be used to defend Israel. So once again, Iran is hit. Now remember what these tribes have been done, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Jordan, they have blocked the roads. They have made sure their army, which is made out of tribes, whether it's the national army, whether it's the tribal army, they have not said no, but they have been very passive. When the roads are blocked, they're not doing anything because the people who are blocking the road are family members. In the case of not just the military, these tribes, particularly the Bani Hassan, they literally are the mid-level and the low level are what you would call the garbage collection. And in the same thing with, if I'm not mistaken, with electricity. The Hawitat, if I'm not mistaken, they have the water. I could have, put them confused. Point being, these tribes have made extremely difficult for the life of the elite and King Abdullah. You have garbage is not being picked up. You have water and electricity, not running all the time by these individuals. And so these individuals are telling King Abdullah, we are not going to be the shield. Now, the Iranians have to hit back, and I'm sure they will. And so the question, however, becomes what is the tribes are going to do? Will Iran, for example, hit Jordan? And what would that mean? That's what I've been watching. What would the tribes do? Because remember, the Hashemite kingdom can remain, even though it's a British imprinted monarchy, for one reason. You do have Prince Hamza, his half brother, who's arrested at the moment. But does not mean King Abdullah will remain king. And so I think that is massively important to see what happens. So this cat and mouse, American break, fighting with Iran, these things for me, it does not matter. I am watching the tribes. I'm watching the Gulf countries. I think Bahrain leadership is pretty much gone. It's not much longer. The Bahraini government, it is in power. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to drop dead tomorrow. Nothing of that sort. But the strict power it once had in the past, it would not be the same. So I'm watching Jordan, I'm watching UAE, and I'm also watching Saudi Arabia, ladies and gentlemen. And Saudi Arabia is important because the United States claim, MBS asked me, I'm not going to allow you to use my land. Well, that's actually a lie that no one believes because it was MBS who told the United States to attack. It was MBS who is accepting these planes because if MBS didn't want it, it would have said, no, I don't want the plane. I don't want the security things. But he did, and the tribes know that. And it's the same thing in the case of MBS of Saudi Arabia, is that what are the Iranians going to do? Are they going to hit the bases again? And if they're not going to hit the bases, what are the tribes going to do? Remember, there is massive backlash, very much like Jordan. These are also tribal. The Tawitat may not be there, the Ajam, the Shar, the Uttayyab. All of these tribes are important because they're not just in the military that provide the security, but they're also in the system. In other words, they're in the electric system, they're in the water, they're in the garbage, they're in the mid-level and to lower level. As a matter of fact, they are just in there, depending on which neighborhood you go in, right? They're the drivers that take you from Medina to Mecca. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, the United States has broken its agreement and the Iranians are going to hit hard. But the question becomes now, what after all of this done? Because the United States finds itself in a situation that it really cannot win this war militarily. Yes, it has massive air power, but it's significantly damaged because the bases that allowed it to remain powerful are destroyed. You have this, the Iranians still have 80% of their missile capabilities. We, on the other hand, have lost a political influence as well. And our Navy is a magnificent Navy, brilliant Navy, but it is a Navy that's designed for blue ocean, not green oceans of the Persian Gulf. And it's a 20th century Navy. So it'll be fascinating to see what the Iranians will do. I think they will still continue because for the Iranians, it's better to keep talking because it just makes the United States lose politically. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this war, as we said 2 months ago, the intention of Iran is not to end the war quickly, is to draw the war longer and longer and longer because along with its allies, China and Russia, its aim is to bankrupt the United States or put the United States in such a situation that is, as I said before, either go bankrupt and stay and lose the war, and we will lose the war because we just don't have the capability. It will be bloody because all Iranian have to do is survive, right? They will destroy an empire or leave, economically survive, but lose politically. So it'll be fascinating to see. But again, watch what happens to UAE, watch what happens to Jordan, watch what happens to Saudi Arabia. These are the three I want to watch, right? See what happens. So thank you so much. I apologize if I went a little bit more than I should. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.